Welcome to Black Gumbo Southern Gardening. Let's transplant some lettuce. It's a beautiful, cool winter morning here in the Texas coast in Zone 9A. It's election day. What a better way to spend election day by ignoring it all and going into the garden to work. In Zone 9A, our winter garden frequently can make it through the entire winter and well into the spring without having any damage from frost or from ice if you plant the right kind of crops. And so that's what we've done. Got some carrots and some cabbage, some peas, radishes, beets, various kinds of crops that do well here throughout through the winter. But we're going to plant some lettuce as well, because lettuce does well here in a mild winter. Sometimes in a mild winter, a lettuce can grow all the way into the spring. And if you keep them cut back, they can provide you salad greens through the entire winter. So that's what we're going to do today. Today I have my lettuce in my tray here ready to be transplanted, and they're a little beat down. I had to water them this morning, and when you water these lettuces, they get a little ragged looking, but they're just fine. They're tough plants. Lettuces are really actually quite tough. They're incredible plants. They're very resilient, and we're going to put some of these in the garden so that we can harvest leaves and cut the leaves and keep these things going throughout the growing season. Because I have 6 different varieties, I'm going to make sure that I write down the names on some labels here. I'd like to know what I'm eating. Since I've got 6 varieties, I want to select the ones that I like the most so that I can grow them in the future. So yeah, some of these aren't doing so well. There's some chickweed growing up in there on this particular one. This is red romaine, but all these others are doing great, and I want to know which one tastes the best. So I'm going to make sure I have my labels ready. I've been growing these in this PropTech tray. There's 162 cells in here, and as you can see, the cells are actually pretty small. And to pop these out, I use a little dowel, and you can see there's not much soil in there. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pop these out first, and we have a nice little lettuce plant with its roots. And I'm going to place these in a tray here and pop them out here at my potting table so that I don't have to mess with them over in the garden. This one didn't turn out so well. We're going to put the ones we don't want on the side here, but these are the ones we want. These little plugs are in nice shape. The compost is holding together fairly well, but it's a very delicate operation if you're not growing in like a peat moss based potting soil. That would give you a much more sturdy plug, but it doesn't really matter. These lettuce plants are very resilient. As weak as they look when you water them, as beat down as they get when the sun shines directly on them, these will be just fine. That's real nice, isn't it? Now, I'm growing in my winter garden, and I want these lettuces to be in this filtered sunlight mostly. You can see that there's shade here cast by my big trees, and this shade will help these lettuces not be in complete total direct sunlight all day long. So I'm going to use some of these holes here, but I've got a problem with these holes. Some of these holes are filled with clay and compacted, and I get a lot of weeds in these holes, so there's going to be a lot of competition. So I'm going to go with this little spade and break up some of the soil. Where the holes are compacted, I'm just going to chop it up a bit and maybe top it with a little potting soil. Some of the holes are actually really nice and have potting soil in them from previous crops that I grew in these holes. So yeah, I'm going to prepare some of these. So I'm just chopping up the soil in these holes, and if I see weeds on the top, I'll just kind of scoop them out. And I'm just loosening that soil. You see, some of my soil has potting mix in there from previous growing efforts. And those are real easy. I just loosen them up a bit. And so we're just going to plant right into these little cells. I'm going to use a dibber to make a hole. A dibber is just a pointy tool. You could use anything. sharp stick. And I'm just going to drop one of these in each hole, press it in, and that's how easy it is to plant lettuce. Let me show you up close the technique that I'm using. First, breaking up the soil if it's compacted. And down in here you can see I've got some pretty good soil, but it is kind of compacted. And once we've got that broken up, if it's a little low like this, then I'll top it off with some potting mix. Then I'll take my dibber, I'll just make a hole. Then I'll take my plug and just drop it in there. And the technique is to press down around it, just like that. That's all you have to do. Now, if you don't like these unsightly divots, then just go fill that in with some potting soil. And there's your planted lettuce. Now, the reason there's so much clay in these holes is when I'm working in my garden here, if I get a big clump of clay, I just put it in here so I don't have to run it over with a lawnmower. And so, big clumps of clay like this one that come out of the garden, I just usually throw them in there. And you know, well, that's what you have to deal with. We'll plant this one in this loosened up clay. Again, just drop it in and press around. Simple as that. That is a lizard egg. That's a lizard egg, and inside that is a little green anole. And so we're going to bury him back in the dirt loosely. Hopefully he'll hatch. We like lizards. That's pretty hard down in there. We'll see the difference between this one and the others in the softer soil. If you have some extras, just drop them in where you've got some room. I'm going to grow these in the midst of my cabbage here. They won't get that big because I'll keep cutting them. So we've now planted a good bit of our lettuce. That's quite a bit of it. And there's empty cells all throughout now. But the rest of these, I'm going to leave them, and we're going to hold these back as our B team, our backups. And just in case we lose some of them that we've planted, we'll have some ready to go in. And once we have our garden established, well, we'll eat these later. We'll throw them in the compost pile, they'll break down, and we'll feed them to our plants. So they're not going to go to waste. Now you can see how when you water, these tender little plants get beat down. Lettuce is supposed to be tender. That's why we like it. That's why we eat it in salads. But believe me, these plants will perk up, and this will be a real nice little selection of lettuce here. But water them in real well. Once these lettuces get established, this is what they're going to look like. These were planted about the same time as those seeds were sown, so these have been in here about 3 or 4 weeks. And yeah, they get about this big, and you start harvesting leaves off of them. I like them to get a little bit bigger, but you just come and cut the leaves off and have a salad every day. Okay, all of our lettuce is now planted. Everything's watered in. The next steps you should take is let those plants get their roots kind of snuggled into the soil there, water them a couple of days, and then you want to come and hit them with a high nitrogen fertilizer, but a low dose. Something like fish emulsion is perfect. You want to give those leafy greens a good start. And in my garden, in those little cells in the cinder blocks, I don't ever fertilize that. I don't really pay them much mind, so it makes sense that they're going to need some fertilization. And after all, nitrogen helps with leafy green growth, and that's what we want. That's what lettuce is. So about 4 or 5 days from now, I'll come and water them in with some nice little fertilizer. Well, there it is. Lettuce is now in. What a pleasant day to be outside gardening. What a good day to plant in the garden. Hopefully this will give us a nice crop of lettuce through the winter. Hey, thanks for joining us on Black Gumbo Southern Gardening. Please like us on Facebook and Instagram. And if you haven't subscribed to our channel, please do. We'd really be humbled if you join our little community here, this little thriving bunch of people, always commenting, always encouraging. So thanks a lot. We'll talk to you next time. Happy gardening. Bye-bye.